excited. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about earn and learn programs, also known as subsidized employment programs. We're going to talk about the successful program that I established at the Urban Services branch of the San Francisco YMCA. So who am I and why am I passionate about this work? Shaq, next slide, please. Perfect. All right. So I work for a branch of the YMCA called Urban Services out here in San Francisco. Urban Services is really unique. I don't know how it is worldwide, but here in the States, the YMCA is really known for gyms and swimming pools and camps for kids. All of that is relevant, but we also do social services, particularly our branch, which has been around for about 25 years. We focus on everything from youth mentorship to after school programs. We have family resource centers. We work with young people, high schoolers who aren't going to school frequently through our truancy programs. And then we have workforce programs for both young adults and adults. And that's what I do. So who am I? I am a first generation high school and college student from South San Francisco. Now here in the States, first generation means a couple of things, but one of the things it means is that I am the first person in my family to graduate from high school and graduate from college. So I was raised by a single mom who left high school after her first year. So that's ninth grade, year one out here in the States. I'm from South San Francisco. It's not technically San Francisco, but the only people who take umbrage with me saying I'm from San Francisco are natives like my husband. So for all intents and purposes, I am from San Francisco. I earned my bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in human rights education, both from the University of San Francisco. This is after I transferred from a community college, which is a 2-year college here in the States where you earn your credits so that you can transfer to a 4-year university or uni. Ooh, look how international I am. So I created the Youth Workforce Development Department for my branch of the YMCA in 2017. And through this department, we serve about 150 to 200 youths between the ages of 14 to 24 each year. COVID could not stop us. We were just as busy in COVID as we typically are. We just had to do everything remotely, including our job placements. So my personal experiences with poverty, as well as my first job, really drive my passion in the field of workforce development. So, you know, as I said, I was raised by a single mom. She cleaned houses for a living. We didn't have much growing up. You know, I'll talk more about my first job in the next slide. I had to work full time while going to college full time, which was really hard. And so, you know, I learned a lot, not just about myself, and not just about what I want to do with my life, but what I want to do for and with others coming from similar circumstances. You know, and I came to the conclusion early on that unpaid internships are completely and totally unacceptable. And so when I got to Urban Services, the first program that I created is called the Empowerment to Employment Program, which we'll refer to as E2E for short. I know it's a mouthful, which is an earn and learn program or a subsidized employment program. It's really focused on addressing a lot of those inequities that are created by unpaid internships and unpaid training programs. Next slide, please. All right, so talked a bit about my first job. That's my first boss, everyone. And that picture was taken only about 2 years ago. We are still in contact with one another. She is an incredible person who put up with a hell of a lot of crap from me when I was young because I didn't have any work experience, right? My mom wasn't in a conventional job where she had to behave professionally. So I didn't have that role model in the home. So I thought that it was completely appropriate to raise my voice at work and use profanity and all these other things that I had to learn the hard way you can't do in a professional environment. So it was a great experience, but again, it was taxing. I had to work full time, 40 hours a week during the day, and then I did all my classes at night and over the weekend. Just thinking about that schedule makes me exhausted. I definitely couldn't do it now at 40. I'm so glad I knocked it out when I was 18. So, you know, and then I got to the point after I transferred to the University of San Francisco where I was told in order to graduate, I have to do an unpaid internship. And so I talked to my counselor and I said, hey, I can't really do an unpaid internship because I have to work full time to pay my rent and, eat and put gas in my broken down car. And they said, you know what? Sorry, you still have to do this. And I was like, God, how am I going to do this? I ended up getting an internship at the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. Love the ACLU. They're an organization that's been around for a long time, dedicated to civil and political and human rights. It was great, but 5 hours a week, I had to, and fortunately my employer was flexible and said, yeah, you can do this internship, but I had to do unpaid work 5 hours a week. And that's when I started cleaning the office that I worked in on Sundays to try to make up for those lost wages. So that's really when I came to the conclusion that, hey, this unpaid internship thing is a racket. We really need to start paying young people for internships. Next slide, please. I'm going to drink some water real quick. All right. So if we look at the statistics, unpaid internship statistics reveal that fields such as political science, journalism, and human development mostly offer unpaid opportunities in contrast to business or agricultural majors, which usually grant paid internships. Okay, so if we look at Google, for instance, or Salesforce, they typically pay their interns about $7,500, right? But if I'm looking at social services internships or the other categories mentioned there, a lot of them do not pay. And those are the industries that our young people really want to go into, or at least the young people that I work with. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the reason, or one of the reasons why I created what I alluded to before, the E2E program, which is an earn and learn program. I had two goals in mind when I created this program. One was to provide low-income young people with the opportunity to earn money while completing an internship. And two was to be paid to learn transferable skills and gain knowledge in lucrative industries. And one of the most rewarding things that I was able to subsequently do was I was able to go back to my alma mater, to the University of San Francisco. They have a first generation low income program. And I know the woman who runs it because I ended up working at the University of San Francisco while I was getting my master's. And I said, give me your young people. Let me get them internships that pay. And so we've started a pretty robust branch of our program, or a recruiting stream for participants for the E2E program from my alma mater. Super exciting, rewarding, validating. It's exactly what I set out to do when I built this program. Next slide, please. So what are earn and learn programs? We'll talk a little bit more about that. These are programs that combine applied learning in a workplace setting with paid wages. It allows workers or students to gain work experience and develop skills and competencies directly relevant to the occupation or career for which they are preparing. So these programs can also combine classroom instruction with paid on-the-job training. And that's exactly what we do. I think the next slide breaks it down, Shaq. Exactly. So this is how we structured our program. This is kind of a bird's eye view. So first of all, our mission is to create those much needed pathways to sustainable employment for what we call transitional age youth, which is typically youth between the ages of 16 to 24, though this program focuses exclusively on 18 to 24-year-olds. So what we do is we take participants in that age group and we do 6 weeks of paid comprehensive professional development and skills training, followed by an internship placement for a minimum of 300 hours. So all of our participants are guaranteed up to 25 hours of work per week at a rate of $17.05 an hour. $17.05 is something that's mandated by the city and county of San Francisco, which is great. My first job, minimum wage was $7.50 an hour. There are still places in the United States where minimum wage is $7.50 or less. Completely unacceptable, but that's a conversation for another time. So it's a cohort-based model. So Previously, we had hosted 2 cohorts consisting of 10 to 15 participants per year. We just got a rather large donation, and so I'm going to be able to up that to 3 or 4 cohorts. Very exciting. But it is an expensive program, right? Because we are paying all of the wages with 2 of the grants that we receive. So it does become expensive. And not only are we paying wages, but we know, and I'm sure many of you know, that when you're doing workforce development, it's about so much more than just helping young people get jobs. It's training them, it's giving them the skills, it's giving them the confidence, it's empowering them to make decisions and make mistakes. It's if they don't have the appropriate clothing to wear to work, we purchase it. When things are normal and you actually have to commute to a job, we pay for transportation. If somebody is going through a construction program, for instance, we pay for tools, steel toe shoes, whatever they need, certificates. I love paying for textbooks for our young people because that was one of the biggest expenses that I incurred when I was in college. Everybody knows, at least in the States, textbooks are incredibly expensive. So much more than just workforce. So it does become a very expensive program. We call it wraparound, right? We take care of, or at least try to take care of, the needs of our young people. And this also includes mental health services. That is a huge component. So participants from each cohort, they do the 6 weeks of paid training. So after they complete the 6 weeks of paid training, we give everybody a $400 check because, again, our motto is that you don't do training for free. So we pay everybody $400 just to do that. So it's a total of 24 hours of training. It's not an overwhelming amount of training. It's 4 hours a week, twice a week, total of 24 hours. So we utilize evidence-based curriculum. I borrowed pieces of curriculum from various places. And we teach not only essential workplace skills like time management, organization, and email etiquette, we also focus on things like trauma-informed self-care and social-emotional learning skills. Now, why do we do that? We do that because, and I am no exception to this, the majority of the young people we serve have experienced an extensive amount of community and or family trauma, and may also be in the midst of experiencing trauma when they come to our program. This resonates with me. I had a lot of what we call adverse childhood experiences or trauma. And when you've gone through trauma or continue to go through trauma, you don't know what's going to trigger you, right? You can have a boss that speaks to you in a way that makes you think of, an abusive parent, the way you were treated as a child, and all of a sudden you're triggered. You're 8 years old again, and you're responding in a way that's a trauma response and is completely and totally inappropriate for the workplace. So we really focus on trying to get young people on their healing journey from trauma, which takes time. But we also teach them to, what to do in the event that they are triggered, how to regulate their emotions. We, being the staff, are always around to help, right? They can pick up the phone at any time, well, almost any time, don't call me after 9 o'clock, to talk to us about something that happened, and we will walk them through that process. And we place interns in multiple industries. We are all about meeting young people where they're at. I am really fortunate to have a pretty robust network, professional network. So if a young person comes to me and says, I want a job in politics, for instance, chances are I can pick up the phone and call somebody who's involved, in that world. And so, we do everything from law, nonprofit administration, lots of childcare, right? We plug lots of young people in at the YMCA. If you come to us and tell us that you want to work with young people, we say, we're going to keep you because we always need good people at the YMCA, right? Government, IT, marketing, you name it. If there's an industry, chances are we've had a young person in that industry or in that industry currently. Next slide, please. All right, so why do these programs work? So subsidized employment programs or earn and learn programs, they really provide incentive for companies who might be reluctant to hire a young person who doesn't have a lot of employment training, who might have some barriers. It's an incentive because we're the one paying the wages. They're technically YMCA employees when they're going through the program. That's a huge incentive to a company, right? If anything goes wrong, we can remove the young person from that program. Fortunately, that hasn't happened many times, and most of our employers really understand the mission and are more like mentors than anything else, and work with us around challenges, understanding that if you continue to support this young person, they are most likely ultimately going to flourish. And so if you look at, what the Russell Sage Foundation said, they said subsidized employment is a promising but underfunded strategy for reducing joblessness and poverty among long-term unemployed and others with barriers to employment. So it does work. I have been able to convince quite a few people in different industries to take on young people, even when they've been reluctant to do so. And this is really important in particular industries that have a real lack of diversity, but are huge industries, right? You look at California, right? Most people, when they think of California, particularly Northern California and the Bay Area, you think of tech. We're the birthplace of tech. Silicon Valley, which is, where tech was born, is about 40 minutes south of San Francisco. Now, if we look at the tech industry in the country, I'm trying to find my stats here. Here they are. The tech industry nationwide only has about 7% Black people in high-tech roles. If you look at Silicon Valley, that number drops to 3%. That is staggering, and that is unacceptable. And, oftentimes I'm able to push into these industries that are lacking in diversity because I say, hey, number one, we're going to pay for everything. Number two, if anything goes wrong, we will pull this person from the program. And I really do harp on, you need diversity. You need this program. You need our young people working at your companies and at your organizations. I'm not always successful in convincing. Sometimes it is an uphill battle, especially with some of these more entrenched companies and organizations that don't know how to prioritize diversity, right? They want to prioritize diversity, they just don't know how. So I'll tell you a story that really illustrates this example. I'm not going to name the company, but they are one of the biggest tech companies in the world. And a friend of mine got me in contact with somebody who really could have been the key in getting my young people jobs. And when we think of tech, right, I think we often think of engineering and coding and all the technical jobs that coincide with the tech world. But there's a lot of admin jobs, right, where you don't need an exceptional amount of skills or even a college degree to do them. And so those were the jobs I was going for. The person sitting at the front desk who welcomes you when you arrive to the office, the executive assistants, people like that. And so I was talking with this representative and I told her all about the mission. I was so passionate. I was so excited. I told her what I wanted to do in terms of getting my kids into this company. Sorry, I say kids because I'm old. And her response, unfortunately, was, I'm going to connect you with the kitchen staff, and I'm going to connect you with the janitorial staff and with the people who drive our buses. And I didn't know what to say. And I have other colleagues in this industry who've been in the room with representatives from this same company who say, we have diversity, it's just in the kitchen. Completely and totally unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. And I think this demonstrates why programs like E2E are so important, because we have to push. We have to push on behalf of our young people to get them in the door at these companies that so desperately need diversity, which is evidenced by that experience that I had with this, multinational tech company. Next slide. Okay. So another staggering, Trina, I love your comment. Very true. That's pretty much how I felt. Another staggering statistic has to do specifically with women. So I experienced this firsthand. Among those participated in unpaid internships, the majority, or 75.5%, are women. This statistic is only from a couple of years ago. So being really galvanized by this, so there were a couple of things that really made this particular opportunity a perfect storm. So COVID hit, and the employment partners that we typically work with, who are hands-on employment partners, we couldn't utilize them anymore. We couldn't send our young people to work, right? And so we had to quickly transition to, okay, we have to do all of our training sessions virtually, and we have to find either socially distanced internship opportunities or remote internship opportunities. And so I'm like, geez, who do I know who could really benefit from this program where it's going to be mutually beneficial, right? Where our young people are going to have an incredible experience in spite of being in this unprecedented pandemic. And so I had gone through this program called Emerge California. It's a nationwide program. Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, helped start it here in San Francisco. And it's a program that teaches Democratic women how to run for public office. I went through this program because that's a goal of mine. But a lot of my Emerge sisters were running for office in 2020. And I said, hey, I wonder if they need interns to help them with their campaigns. And lo and behold, they did. My friend worked in, now Vice President, then Senator Kamala Harris's office, so we were able to get an intern there. Congresswoman Barbara Lee, some of my personal heroes who just happened to be personal heroes to a lot of the young women who were going through our programs from the Muscat Scholars Program that I mentioned earlier at my alma mater. So that program for first generation low income students, I was able to pull young women directly from that program and put them into political internships, doing policy work and working on campaigns. And that was really exciting. So now I'm going to attempt to share a video. I literally just learned this platform 5 minutes before we got on. So Shaq, I'm going to give it a shot. All right.
Go ahead and share.
If I can do this. Oh, I think we got it. Shaq, if you wouldn't mind monitoring the chat just to make sure people have audio.
Of course.
Okay, I hope everybody can see this. Here we go.
Can you maximize the video?
Politics was very confusing to me, as it is for a lot of people. And I always worried, I don't know if I can really make a change, because I felt so much anger and confusion about a lot of the things going on in the current administration. But once I learned about local politics and San Francisco politics through E2E, it really made me understand that I do have a voice and I have the ability to make change. I am part of a program called the Muscat Scholars at the University of San Francisco. And in this program, they posted about a youth workforce opportunity, E2E. And so I figured it's a summer, I'm out of work, why don't I take a chance with it? And in E2E, they taught me professional skills, leadership, working community, and it was really a place to foster community, to have connection with people during COVID, and it completely opened the door for me to grow into my professional self and to really start my career. They introduced me to Commissioner Alia Chisti when she was running for a city college board. And essentially, Alia really opened my eyes to grassroots activism, to community organizing, to really getting involved in activism from the bottom up.
I am running for City College Board to make sure that CCSF continues to provide opportunities for less advantaged students in a city with growing social class and race inequality that I have witnessed before my own eyes. Vote for Alia Chisti for City College Board on November 3rd.
I am and was super excited to have Kayla be a part of the team. She is our rock star, and we had her supporting with our field, and she was out there door hanging and helping us with voter outreach. And I think, something that's really important to me is mentoring young women of colors. And so she's at the cusp of graduating from USF soon, just super exciting, and just making sure that she is applying for jobs or is exploring other careers and doing informational interviews, something that I wish somebody told me to do when I was in college.
Alia is really great at connecting with people from a personal level. And that's what I learned about politics too, is that you really have to understand where people are coming from, what their background is, their story. And it's really more personal at a certain point, putting aside like a lot of our beliefs to really understand each other and where we come from. And watching her convince voters to vote for her, watching her foster community and really connect with people showed me that if we can do this on like the ground level, if we can do this for education, we can do this for so much more, especially on those big pressing issues that, you know, we're divided on. I had an interesting situation. I grew up in LA, you know, raised by a single mom. We were low income. We definitely struggled a lot, but my mom worked 3 jobs at a time to put me through private school. And then I had a scholarship to a private high school in Los Angeles. And that opened a lot of opportunities for me, but it also showed me vast inequalities and how those affected me personally, because I felt like an outsider at that school. Like I couldn't relate to a lot of people. I couldn't connect with a lot of friends, administrators, and teachers. And I think that feeling of like unsureness, of being like an outsider, really inspired me to like want to push for education reform, push to make youth of color like feel included into these spaces, especially like academic spaces, because schools are so important and schools are so foundational for shaping a child's like well-being and their future. And I think schools need to be more inclusive to students from all different kinds of backgrounds. My mom always told me that she had wanted to go to college because she hadn't gotten college, my grandmother hadn't gotten college, and our understanding was that that was going to be the way to like break open the door for us to start moving up as a family. And so I opened my acceptance letter from University of San Francisco and I do my research and I'm like, okay, this campus is beautiful. The city is amazing. It's full of culture. University of San Francisco has an amazing social justice mission. They have great programs. And so I really also took a chance on USF and I think it was the best decision I could have made. I'm so happy being here.
Yay.
Yay, thank you, Jen. That was a great video.
So glad the tech worked. So, oh no, was it choppy? I'm sorry, guys. We can make it available, I think, if anybody wants to watch it later. I can add the link. Kayla is such an incredible young woman. I think that was pretty obvious. She's so brilliant. Not only was she in her last semester at USF when she did these internships, but she did an internship with my merged sister, Alia Chiste, who you saw, who won her election, is now a city college trustee. She also worked on another campaign for a man who became a school board commissioner, and she worked in Kamala Harris's office. I'm like, are you sure you want to do all this? But she killed it. She was an absolute benefit to the people that she was supporting and working with. And, from a personal perspective, it is just such an incredible honor to get to run a program like this and to just open the door. The young people who come to us are incredibly talented. They have so much to offer the world. We just have to open the door and provide opportunities that may not otherwise be available because of the barriers that exist in a white supremacist society. All right, I can barely see this. Can you blow this up at all?
Sorry, Jen, you might need to maximize on screen.
Oh yeah, I can do that. I have an idea. Hold on one second. I am just going to look at my own slides. All right, so Why do we need earn and learn programs in the Bay Area? I just mentioned discrimination. So because of discrimination, racism, and historic and current policies, racial gaps in income remain wide and persistent in the Bay Area, despite the region's robust economic growth. Think about the tech example that I mentioned. So Black and Latinx families with children are more than twice as likely as white and Asian American families with children to live in poverty, and less than half as likely to own a home. Owning a home here in San Francisco is incredibly challenging. Our market is incredibly bloated. It's starting to change a little bit because of COVID, but even renting a one-bedroom apartment prior to COVID, the average one bedroom was something like $3,000 a month. That is insane. 1 in 5 individuals experiencing homelessness in San Francisco is under the age of 25, so the demographic that we serve. And many young people experiencing homelessness have little to no formal work experience. We're trying to change that. The median income for Latinos is just 73% of the Bay Area average. I think that mirrors the rest of the country when you look at how much women make compared to men, and how much women of color make in comparison to men, white men in particular. Median income for African Americans is 48% of the Bay Area average. And investing in apprenticeships and earn and learn models that reskill and upskill lower income earners with resilient and in-demand skills is a strategy that could help the regional economy recover from the current economic crisis. So we do have a lot of wonderful training programs here in the Bay Area. One is this incredible construction trades program, which I love, but they don't pay. So looking at this program, you will get a job in the trades. You will, after 18 weeks, you will be picked up by one of the many unions that exists here in California. But the program is 18 weeks. It's unpaid. And it's like a full-time job. It is from 8 to 5 every day. So if you want to get into the building trades through this program, and it works, we've had young people go through the program, you have to either work at night, which is what our young person had to do. Ross is a discount department store we have out here. This young man was stocking the shelves overnight at Ross and then going to this program every day. So it's really, really hard, and wouldn't be as hard if this were a paid training program. So if you look at the demographics of the young people that we serve, you can see that 25% of the young people we serve are African American, they are Black. 31% Latinx folks. You look at the composition of who we serve, and you can see that they are directly impacted by those staggering and inequitable statistics that I referred to in the last slide. Next slide, please. So tips for starting an earn and learn program. You want to be, as I mentioned, the employer of record. So that definitely takes a lot of stress off an employer, particularly an employer who might be reticent to bring a young person with limited job experience into the office. And so we handle everything. We do all the payroll administration, all the HR stuff. We work very, very closely with the supervisors so that if any issues arise, we can work collaboratively to address them. You need to have a strong job developer. That is huge. It has to be somebody who has a lot of connections. That is key, right? You could create an earn and learn program. Yeah, I can share this presentation with everyone once I figure out how to do that. And I will give you my contact information as well, so you can always reach out to me. I've had a few YMCAs reach out to me in the past, and we've talked about them building something like this. So I'm always excited to help with that. Strong job developer, right? Somebody who has a plethora of contacts out there in the big wide working world. Cover barrier removal, some of the things that I talk about. Think about the barriers to employment that our young people are facing. Do they need transportation assistance? Do they have appropriate clothes to go to work in? If not, how are you going to help them obtain these needs? Design a curriculum that teaches both soft skills and trauma-informed care. Regulating emotions, a curriculum that's predicated not just on the technical stuff that you have to do at most jobs, but also, how to regulate emotion. Be accessible. We have a rule on my team where if somebody reaches out to us, we get back to them within 24 hours without exception. Whether that's a colleague, a program participant, a supervisor, communication is key. And being there, especially for a population, we work with a lot of foster youth, for instance, or youth who have had unstable family lives, as I've mentioned. Consistency is key. We are often one of the few stable adults in their life, and you will be in that position as well. So be accessible, right? But boundaries are important. Conduct weekly case management with participants. So every week we meet with each of our participants to talk about challenges, successes, anything that they need assistance with. It's just our time to get to know them better, keep establishing trust and get them to tell us what it is that they need so we can help them navigate challenges. Communicate frequently with employment partners. We have all of our employment partners fill out a weekly timesheet where they address both the successes and the challenges that the young person is facing so that we know exactly what to work on with the young person as it relates to their current job and future jobs. Surveys are big. We survey all of our program participants before and after the program to assess how they felt about entering the working world before the program, and then how they feel about navigating that working world after the program. We also administer surveys to our employment supervisors as well, because we want to make sure, we're constantly improving, we're constantly refining. And I feel like we can only do that with feedback. And we want to take that to the next level when we want to start an alumni association for E2E. And we want to connect these alums with current participants so that they can all work together to solve challenges from a really informed perspective, having gone through the program. So we try to maintain contact with participants after the program ends. We have young people, this program started over 4 years ago. We have young people we're still in contact with. It's incredible. We love it. Though this population can be a little transient and they're just like, well, my own kid is only 3.5, but ultimately he will get to the point, I'm sure, where he only calls me when he needs something. So, we'll oftentimes hear from our alums when they need something, which is totally fine. Once you're in the program, you're always in the program, and we're always around to help if we have the capacity to do so. So don't be afraid to fire employment partners. This is a big one. So, I had a situation where I had a young person do something on the job. It was a lumber yard. This young person had a really fractured relationship with their father, who was sick and unhealthy. And, unbeknownst to me and unbeknownst to the supervisor, this young man's dad had just been hospitalized with heart failure, and he threw a broom. And nobody was around to see it except for another employee. So there weren't any customers around. But instead of working with me and working with the young person whom they were going to extend employment to after the subsidized employment period ended, all of a sudden they took back that offer of employment and they asked that he be dismissed right away, in spite of the fact that he was dealing with all of this trauma and that nobody had seen it, right? To me, in terms of the young people I work with, that's such a small thing. But to this employment partner, it was huge. And so we subsequently came to the conclusion that we're not going to work with this partner anymore because he doesn't understand our young people. And we're going to consistently be in situations with this employment partner where young people, when they fail, they're going to take it to heart. And so we can't set them up for failure with an employment partner who doesn't understand our mission and see eye to eye with us. So don't be afraid to fire employment partners. All right, so let's open it up to questions. So there's a couple of questions just to kind of get your brains flowing, but you are welcome to ask anything.
And Jen, we're going to go ahead and put, I think, on the screen, okay?
Ooh, I love it.
So if you request it, you're going to get there slowly.
Oh.
We'll see. Maybe not. Maybe I spoke too soon.
Oh.
There we go. Hi. That's Chuck Collins.
Oh, Chuck Collins. Hi. I see you, Chuck, I think.
if you have any questions, you have any comments about everything that we just went over the past 30, 40 minutes, go ahead and put it in the chat or come on screen. We'd love to hear from you.
Can I be heard?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
you can, Chuck. You are live.
Jennifer and Shaq, two of my heroes. For those of you who are in the audience, I am sort of the grandfather of the Y of San Francisco, and it means the world to us, literally the world to us, that you're participating in this. And to really see and to hear the stories that come out of this, the authenticity of Jennifer's own voyage. But remember, she mentioned University of San Francisco. If you recall, you can get a certificate from the University of San Francisco by your active participation in this summit. And I'll be meeting with them and Tom Valentine just day after tomorrow. The reason I say this is always be on a course, as Jennifer and Shaq were saying, to your own independence. And we would welcome you here in San Francisco so that you, as Jennifer and Shaquille, can be with us. And also we have sort of an inroad to thinking about how you would get in San Francisco and get your further education. So all those things are things that we've got in play, but stay with it, and thanks for participating.
Thank you, Chuck. I'm glad I didn't know you were here because I would have been nervous. Love Chuck.
Yes, thank you. Mike, you are good to jump in whenever you want, but we have some questions and prompts. Chuck, thank you for reminding everybody about we are going to get a certificate for your participation of ours here in the summit from the University of San Francisco. And yes, as things open up, I know San Francisco wants to welcome everybody back into the city.
Thanks, Shaquille. Firstly, I wanted to say a massive thank you, because this definitely is the future of these kinds of programs, because we have to stop unpaid internships. At one point, the UK government, about 7 years ago, actually ran unpaid internships as a government scheme, essentially mandated unpaid work at a government level, which is just completely unacceptable. And something which is terrible. So I think, thank you so much for sharing this with us, because this is exactly the type of solution. And I like that one of your prompts is, do you think you could implement an earn to learn question? Because for me, if I was a young leader watching this, I'd be thinking, is this a potential solution that we could look at putting into place where we are? And when you finish this summit, to go away, to reflect on what that would look like in your context, it would require some adapting. It would require different levels of scaling, but then apply for seed funding through the Youth-Led Solutions Initiative to start that program and grow it. So this is something that a very tangible idea that you could look at after this summer, connecting with Jennifer, connecting with Y San Francisco, partners like the University of San Francisco, and thinking, what would that look like where I am? And it would be remiss of me if I didn't just quickly say a big thank you to Chuck Collins as well, who humbly popped on and said a few words, but Chuck was there at the inception of the Youth-Led Solutions Initiative, with some young leaders from around the world and people like Chuck and others. It's thanks to them that we have this platform. So I'm thanking him for that. And that was really it. I didn't have an explicit question, but I guess if I did have one, Jennifer, it would just be, what would be job one? If I was to go, yes, I want to run this, what would be the first job on the list to go, how do I run this as a solution in my context?
I would start with curriculum. Curriculum is key, and covering all the elements that I mentioned. You want to design your curriculum first and foremost, figure out how you're going to implement it, and make it incredibly interactive. A lot of the young people who go through our programs have not really thrived in a more conventional academic setting, for lack of a better word. So you want to make it fun and engaging. That's where I would start. And then setting up jobs, right? Getting those opportunities, getting employment partners to invest. Another strategy for investment that I failed to mention. So we have grants, we operate using grants, but we also have individual employment partners who pay a per intern fee. Which covers expenses, barrier removal, some overhead stuff for staff. So that's a way to do it as well. So if you're going to go with that strategy, obviously getting employment investors early on is really key.
Jennifer, that's some really nice, tangible advice. I hope people have been taking notes, because this is definitely one on the list of things I could do when I start taking action. When I wake up on Thursday morning, the day after the summit finishes, this would be what I'd be jumping into action to look at. So yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We have a comment here from Lois. I was just going to read it out loud for those of you who might not be able to see the chat. It is possible to implement an Earn to Learn workforce program at my branch, but some challenges here in Nigeria are quite different. Lois, if you want to hop on screen or chat more about that, I am so curious. We are so curious to know more about what are the challenges that are different in your region. And obviously, this is one of the most powerful things about this type of summit is that we're connecting all over the world. And, America being the hegemonic power that it is and the privilege it has, our challenges are going to look very different and our opportunities are going to be scaled differently. But I think that there are ways where you can duplicate and use the same type of model across. Jen, one of the things that I think about a lot about your role is that you kind of like are a salesperson.
Yes.
You have to sell this program to people. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to walk into a room and be prepared to talk to folks in the construction industry, the tech industry, all sorts of different industries. And I'm selling our young people. I'm selling their talent. I'm selling this program. And I do have a background in real estate and sales. And I've had a lot of jobs, as you can probably imagine. And I think that served me really well in this capacity. But sales is key. You're right.
So one question I have on behalf of all young people and people who are coming into this, want to build this into CAs. I guess, how do you do it? How do you start identifying? Is it just your local network? Is that where you start and then you grow from there?
That's where I started. So, my husband grew up with, compared to me, a tremendous amount of privilege. He went to a college preparatory high school in San Francisco. And I look at his network compared to the network or lack thereof that I acquired at, El Camino High School in South San Francisco, a public high school where most folks were working class, and so I relied on his network a lot too. When I first started, I was like, who do you know in these industries? And then I looked at the network that I had built up over time on LinkedIn. And I literally just started reaching out to friends, family, and people within my network. And that's how I built it. And then word of mouth, right? Word of mouth is key. People started to hear about, how great this program is. And now people are reaching out to us.
Powerful. Thank you. And circling back to something that Mike had said, a lot of us are here to identify solutions for our regional issues. Mm-hmm. And I think this could easily be one for a lot of people to adapt and to augment. And Jen did share her email in the chat at jsalerno@ymcsf.org. You can definitely email her if you want to talk more about this. A reminder that we have about 5 minutes of this discussion left, and then you can go ahead and route yourself to the networking tab or the library or the plenary. The live plenary has ended after this. Oh, I got Lois on here. So Lois, we're going to put you on, okay?
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Lois. Welcome.
Thank you. Please, it's evening here, so light is low. Please, I apologize for that. Okay, so one of the reasons why I say there are peculiar challenges in Nigeria is because we have been having issues with our educational system is a bit low, so sometimes uh, it affects the level of commitment of the youth. So
Yes.
most they feel they want they expect to be paid too much for an internship, and
Mhm.
it's like when an offer is given, they feel that offer is not good enough, and um, they would rather find other ways of doing. But I all you said, and it has helped me to understand that I can use the model and then try to find ways working with my YMCA here in Nigeria to make sure we um, look at the problems that we have and then try and create a model that fits our system, then work with it.
Yeah.
There are some issues that I don't know. Maybe you might not understand if I explain it to you. Maybe because you don't understand, you don't really have a full picture of how Nigeria is at the moment. But I really enjoy the whole model, and I think it's a very good idea. We would find ways. Majorly, what we do here in YMC in Nigeria is we do this vocational training centers, and guys, uh sometimes they are not really motivated. I don't know. It's like they expect that when they are learning, they should be. But well, I really appreciate and I'm really excited to be a part of this. Like I'm really learning a lot, and I'm really excited to make sure that I share it with my YMCA.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank,
Lois.
thank you, Lois.
A lot of
Thanks.
the things you mentioned are challenges here as well. Many of the young people we work with are still working toward their high school diploma or their high school equivalency. We call it GED. They have sometimes unrealistic expectations of what they should be compensated. Here in the States, YouTube and all of these get noticed, get recognized quick kind of ways
Yeah.
of making money. Yeah, I think it's a worldwide phenomenon, right? We have to slowly kind of break down these usually unrealistic expectations. Just understand that, and it's hard too because you want every young person to be committed because you see the potential that they have and the potential that this program, if they stick with it, will yield. But sometimes young people aren't ready, and keep the door open. If they say, nah, I don't want to do this right now, you say, okay, you come back to me when you're ready. And a lot of times they will come back. Sometimes they're just not quite there yet for whatever reason. And that hurts. But if you accept that and also keep the door open, that's kind of the model that we use. And you brought up a good point too. I just want to mention, we have alternative education or programs that help our young people get their high school diplomas. So oftentimes they'll be enrolled in our workforce program and also concurrently enrolled at like Bayview's CARE is the acronym, and it's helping young people get their high school diplomas. So it's really about that wraparound approach, right? What does this young person need? Are they struggling with food insecurity at home, and that's why they need to make money really quickly and can't be here? Okay, well, how do we get that family fed? It's looking deeper into what the whole challenge and issue is, and works.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lois.
I think we're out of time.
We're about to end in a few moments. Everybody, just a reminder that tomorrow is our last day. And if you want any more content for today, you want to do more, there's a networking tab on the left-hand panel of your screen. And you can go ahead and click that. You'll be paired up randomly to anybody across the world who's also on it, kind of like a chat roulette. And then if you want to see anything that's pre-recorded, that's already happened, you can check out the resource library. Chuck, did you have any last words for us?
I was just going in the chat. For one, I'm also available, but I just wanted to go back and thank both Shaq and Jennifer for everything very, very material rich. But one of the things that Jennifer ended on is that you have to look at the whole person. You have to look at the whole community, because the problems are not just the problems of the individual, but they're systems that we have to touch. And the more of those systems you can touch, the more effective your opportunity for gaining traction. So Jennifer, thanks for talking about that. Sure. Mental health, physical wellness, food insecurity, the history of trauma, the history of all the situations that people inherited. And it's not really a single point of entry. And Jennifer and Shaq, thanks for opening up the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here today. This has been an incredible experience. And please feel free, my email is in the chat. Reach out to me. I'm happy to help in any way I can. I know that this recording will ultimately be available, so you'll have access to all the content. I can also send you the PowerPoint presentation as well.
I think I was on mute, but anyway.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the sessions, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.